What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. Here with my co-host Zak Noble. You can find him on Twitter at Zak Noble, spelled out exactly as it is at the bottom of the screen there. And of course, you can find me at Scotty Drowned on Twitter and all social media platforms. Today, what we're going to get into, we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about James Harden, that video clip that came out from his weekend in China, obviously calling Daryl Morey, the Sixers president, GM, a liar, and says that he will never play for an organization that Daryl Morey is a part of ever again. Obviously, some Embiid trickle down effect. I don't know if it had anything to do with that, if he was trolling, but he removes processing from his Twitter bio. He removes the city of Philadelphia from his Twitter bio. So we'll see how that plays out over the next few days. And then, of course, we're going to finish out with probably something a little bit more positive and exciting, I guess. But top 10 shooting guards in the NBA today going into the 2023-24 season here. So me and Zach, we're going to get into a bunch of it today. But let's start at the top, man. I want to start with that James Harden conversation. Now, obviously, I have, some certain ways I feel about it, being a Sixers fan, being entrenched in the Sixers and Philadelphia community. But I do want to get your opinion first, my man, as somebody who is looking from the outside in. A lot less bias influences your take in this situation. So I want to hear your thoughts first before I dig into mine here specifically.
Man, first of all, I'm so sick of freaking talking about your team right now and James Harden specifically, but it is what it is. It's hot news. You got to talk about it. But on top of that, you're living up to your full name. I gave you all those compliments last week, and then I turn on Twitter and you're drowning again. Scotty's fully immersed in the water. I was trying to figure out how I can save him today, but he's smiling. He's in good spirits. But yeah, Scotty Drowned is living to
Absolutely
full potential right now.
I went to the beach this weekend and never came back, man. I'm still in that ocean, just swallowing and engulfing water.
I feel for you guys, but I don't at the same time. Like, I was reflecting on it today, like thinking about and I was like, you know what? This Eagles team, I don't really give a shit about baseball, but this Eagles team this year and last year, I would rather have that roster than any roster in Minnesota Vikings history in my lifetime besides maybe 2009. So you can go fuck yourself, you little spoiled guys over there and gals.
It's so true. It's so true, man. It's so true. And Phillies, I know you don't care about baseball. Phillies went to the World Series last year. They're playing great baseball right now. The Union, even the Philadelphia Union, the soccer club, man, is actually on top of soccer in the MLS right now. And they're in the semifinal of the League's Cup against Messi today. Like, things are good in Philadelphia, and maybe it is just that spoiled brat mentality that we're running through right now.
It is. Yeah, so I don't really feel bad for you guys because you're complaining about second-round exits when there's poverty franchises like us over here trying to just make the play-in. So, yeah, I'll take your misery that you guys subject. But no, let's get into it. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it's the worst thing you could ever say about a GM. Okay, and from where that player GM relationship was from Houston to trying to make that trade work, but there's no way Tillman Fertitta is going to let it go to Philadelphia. So James had to go to a second option in Brooklyn. Like, those guys have been tied at the hips. And if you look at the history of the game, there's not too many player GMs that their careers are tied to each other, like Morey and Harden. So it is kind of sad when you look at it, but like, that was one of the most damning things a player could ever say. And Harden's not somebody that necessarily says crazy shit like that. He's pretty respectful to the media, his teammates. He always talks highly of them. But when it comes to the trade situation in the NBA, this goes around the league and it's been for years. It sucks. It really sucks how players have to get crazy. They have to act up. They have to do all sorts. This goes back to KG in Minnesota. Like, he loved it here. But like, he had to act crazy to get out of here. Like, he just these guys aren't their authentic selves. They don't know what to do. And then it's a two-way street. So it's really hard with not knowing the actual facts, but more and more facts are coming out, which is getting exciting. That's for sure. But yeah, it's really hard to see a relationship like that dwindle. But on top of it, I hate how people, let's go back to Houston. I hate how people talk about Harden like that. That was his first exit. He gave them everything. Dude, I mean, I don't know what to say. People just get all worried about a fat suit and all that shit.
Yeah, they lump that in with Brooklyn and Philly thing now.
And it's like your first exit, it's never goes very well for many guys. It's very rare. And especially with stubborn, especially with stubborn ownership and GMs. And that's what Houston had. That's what Philly has now, the most stubborn GM at all times. So you got these guys headbutting, but like, I gave him a pass for Houston. I gave him a pass for Brooklyn. But like it's a tradition. It's becoming a tradition, and so it's definitely becoming a red flag. This guy is not innocent by any means, but at the same time, wink, wink agreements, I feel like happen all the time in the history of the game. It's how the game's made. It's how it's built on. So when tampering things happen, like they happen with role players, really. And guys that, I mean, the last big time tampering thing I can recall is like Joe Smith in Minnesota, who turned out to be a dud, like the number one pick. And Minnesota lost draft picks because of that. That was back in the early 2000s. So other than that, it's just a bunch of minor stuff. And so whatever you want to say about this wink, wink that Morey might have been willing to offer money. No, I don't buy it. I'm like, this is where I'm leaning more Harden's side because there are plenty of reports that are out that he didn't really even offer any contracts. They didn't even talk about it. He basically took it all away. And it never says, there's no verbiage that says Harden was demanding a full 5-year full max. There's none of that. And I'm sure he's probably a lot higher than he would be accepting of a contract now. That's probably the case, but that doesn't matter at the time when you could sign a contract. So anybody who like questions why he opted into it, he opted into it for Philly's benefit as well. So Philly fans can't be mad that James Harden opted into that contract, because if he didn't, you're fucked either way. You get nothing in return. So you have to go through this if you want anything in return for the guy, or else James isn't your problem, even though he might not get even that $35 million. I do think he would have got much more than that in the open market. I do. But like, that's what the two people are hung up on. It's like, one, like James demanding more money. Well, we don't know what James actually demanded. That number has not been reported. And two, it's like the opt-in, people are so up in arms about this opt-in. That opt-in benefits you guys. So shut up. Shut up. Like, it's a hard break, man. Like, tell me anything otherwise where I'm wrong here, but like, it just sucks because it's a lot of games and it just prolongs your season and it makes your GM look absolutely terrible.
I do agree. I agree with the look of Daryl Morey. I do agree. It looks terrible on his end as well. There's nobody that's absolved in this situation. I guess my first question before I dig into the situation itself, were the Sixers allowed to offer him a new contract before he had to make his decision on opting in? Like, if they wanted to offer him an extension after the season, are they allowed to do that without being like charged with tampering?
No, and that's why, like, as far as I'm concerned, there's no way that was even possible. So he had to opt in before free agency
would have to be a wink, wink.
Correct, but like the fact that he didn't throw any amount of money out there to like give Harden a heads up, because you talk about that. with your star players, there's never been in the history of the game that you haven't. We're going to be roughly around here. We're going to be really close.
Yeah.
We'll get what you want. So it's make it worthwhile for you. I'm just trying to think because like if Daryl Morey tells him 0, like that just pisses him off, and like there's no way Daryl's that stupid that says I can't tell you a number right now, James. I can't tell you any numbers. So then, like there's a win-lose situation. You had to have thrown out any sort of number if you're Daryl Morey there. And if you told him a contract when Harden took a $15 million pay cut, okay? Like, people don't talk about that enough, okay? He took a $15 million pay cut. That puts him down the line as a second, third level star in the league, and then he gets his role reduced, okay? They says you got to listen to Doc Rivers. You got to run your entire offense through Joel Embiid. So he does that to perfection in the regular season, okay? And then people get hung up on a playoff performance. Well, you're not paying him like a star, first of all. So let's get that out the door. Like, you're not paying him 40+ million. The dude took a cut so he could blame Daryl Morey for not signing more people. And then on top of that, Daryl Morey should have been looking to trade Tobias Harris, not going for middling 12th man on the team this year, this offseason. Dwayne Dedman and who else did he sign? Montrezl Harrell again. Guys that mean absolutely nothing. Like, what are we talking about here? He could be doing so much more.
It's
on Daryl, man. It really is. You can call Harden spoiled all you want, but unless Harden's saying he's demanding a max, I lean his way. But yes, I will tell you time and time again, I wouldn't have given him a max, but Daryl shouldn't have told him he was going to give him a max anyways if he did that. Like, Harden hasn't came out and said he told me he'd give him a max. He told me he would make it right. He would make up for that $15 million lost.
You know where I'm at, Zach, with this team, and it's funny because you said at the beginning of the show you're like tired of talking about this team, and it's like, it's bittersweet that we're in this situation because we get to talk about the Sixers all the time from my point of view, and I'm just kind of sick of these players, and maybe with James Harden, it's just one of those situations where it's really unlucky of him to come in a situation after we just dealt with Ben Simmons and him sitting out of the season and him acting like
that's a part of it.
Brat. And I think, the tolerance and the patience for that type of behavior, not saying that Harden is taking it to the extent that Ben Simmons did. We haven't seen it yet. Maybe he will. We just don't know how the season's going to start. But I think our tolerance and patience for that type of behavior is lessened and lessened. And then you take it a step further because it's not only Harden that I have a problem with in this situation. I have a problem with Daryl Morey, and I also have a problem with Joel Embiid in this situation, right? Whether he is trolling the fan base by taking that stuff out of his Twitter bio, Lord knows, social media these days, people are going to notice it, right? Whether it was meant to be noticed or not, people are going to notice it. And yeah, it's childish. It's immature, man. And it just leads me to this point where I'm just like fed up with the organization itself. Like, I'm fed up with Daryl Morey. I'm fed up with Joel Embiid. I'm fed up with Elton Brand. I'm fed up with James Harden. And it's to the point where I just want to like dismantle this entire organization and just start the hell over, man. Like, I feel like there is a more peaceful world where we're a middle of the pack team like the Brooklyn Nets, and we just get to see Tyrese Maxey have this Mikal Bridges-esque type of season and turn into this stuff. Like, I feel like there's almost, and mind you, I'm speaking from a platform where we just went through the process, right? Like, we just felt what that felt like. And that is the low of the low. Although you see OKC, they did the process the right way, and they're kind of hitting that light at the end of the tunnel. But all in all, man, I'm tired of being in the middle of the news. I'm tired of being like the Sixers fans that get like trolled by the rest of the NBA world, the Miami and the Boston Celtics of the world. But to your point, it does come from a spoiled perspective where we have all these other teams living and fulfilling all of these high expectations. And yet the Sixers, they just dive into this rabbit hole of second round exits. Yet, you know what the problem is for me? When I look at Bryce Harper and I look at Jalen Hurts, and these are the superstars of our city. And then I look at Joel Embiid, and I look at all three of them together, and I'm like, who is the guy that is most full of himself? And it's Joel Embiid, yet he is the least successful of the three guys. And that's what blows my mind, and it leads me to think, is this just like an NBA problem? Like, is this like an NBA ego problem? Like,
Right there. So
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Finish your thought.
I was just gonna say, it leads me to the point where I'm not even gonna put all of this blame on James Harden. I know I've slandered James Harden to the point where I can't return back to being a James Harden fan, and I won't support him. And to that point, I won't support Embiid when he leaves the Sixers if he demands a trade out, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. I'm going to support Philly and Philly teams, and that's just the way it's going to be. But it isn't just James Harden problem, right? It's Dame Lillard is demanding a trade out, and he only picked one team. And, last offseason, it was the next person or whatever, right? KD does it mid-season. Kyrie Irving does it mid-season, whatever the case may be. It seems like an NBA problem, and it worries me. It makes me disinterested in the Sixers as a whole. And then, sure, I can look at the NBA as a full product and just admire it from that stance because I love basketball. So, that's kind of the crossroads I'm at right now, Zach. And I know it does come from, a spoiled mindset. But I do want to hear what you have to say. Just looking at this situation versus the entire NBA, is it just unlucky that Philadelphia has had to deal with two all-star, superstar players in a row that have done this type? I don't even want to say done because, once again, it's not all James Harden's fault, to your point. This is a organizational problem or a league problem. Is it just unlucky that Philadelphia had to deal with two of these guys in a row? Is it Joel Embiid, the common denominator of the issues that have transpired over the last 5 to 6 seasons, where you have Jimmy Butler walking out the door as well? Where do you stand on that? Is this just a league problem and Philly's just on the short end of the stick here?
First of all, I mean, there are just Sixer fans out there. I guarantee you. There's people that just like the NBA in Philadelphia and not
Absolutely
the other sports. So you got to respect those people too.
Absolutely.
And that's why we do this show in the NBA, because we get to just not worry about our teams. And I couldn't do a full NBA podcast of the Timberwolves. I thought about that years ago, and I would be insufferable. It would be terrible. Because it would drive me. I feel it in you at times, but that's why I'm a huge NBA fan. I love the league, but the worst part about the league is star players are the league. It's the most important one person can be in any sport in the entire world that's not an individual sport. So yes, these guys are the center of the league. It's all about them. Bryce Harper could have a personality like no other, be terrible. They'll ship him off because they don't need him. Yes, he's important, but he doesn't make near the difference one NBA player does. Yes, Jalen Hurts plays the second most important position in all of sports, but quarterbacks have to have a specific mindset in order to be successful. There are very few just terrible people that are at the quarterback position. There are.
Very true.
They all seem like great dudes, most of them. When you get down to it, and they're all team first guys because they have to be to be successful. You have to rally all these guys around you. Where in the NBA, it's incredibly rare, but if you put yourself in their shoes, I mean, you're literally the front and center of everything. The organization is all about you. You think about Doc Rivers and his post conferences and everything you hear about Doc Rivers is he's faded away from being a team coach and the role players, and everything's about the star with Doc Rivers. That's the problem. It's the coaches that can relate to everybody on the team. It's the players that care about everybody. And I'm not saying Joel Embiid doesn't care about everybody, but he doesn't think about the repercussions of when he does things. And he does them in the worst times possible, it seems like. And I feel for y'all because just like here, like who knows what he means? It definitely is a terrible, terrible look right now.
But then he'll
And
tweet about soccer.
yeah, exactly. And it could come at at a more terrible time than ever. But like if you go back to 2017, like many teams can do this, but like this is just a little bit into the Sixers glance is like you traded the number 1 pick, you drafted Markelle Fultz over Jason Tatum. 2018, the GM Twitter controversy of Colangelo. 2019, you traded Jimmy Butler. He was a personality, and that team was very good together. They played excellent as a team. 2020, fired coach, hired new coach, then new GM as well. 2021, Ben last year. And now 23, you got a James Harden trade. Like you haven't had a it's just full of drama.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many years because you got all the process years before that.
Don't forget trading Mikal Bridges.
Cut out a little bit.
Don't forget trading Mikal Bridges for Zaire Smith as well. That was mixed in there at some point as well, the hometown kid. So, yeah, they've made plenty of mistakes.
Hey,
Zach, you still with me here?
Yeah, did you hear anything I just said?
I heard up until you talked about Ben Simmons and then James Harden in 2023, this ordeal.
Okay. No, I was just basically
you recapped the time. I heard the whole timeline. I heard the whole timeline
because it's like
I didn't hear after that.
You guys haven't had just a normal off season of drama-less training camp and anything in how many years, and then you put the whole process in front of that. So it stinks, and there's very few teams in the NBA like that. I will tell you that. So it's got to say something about your ownership group. It's not a good look. And doing something as crazy as the process was, I mean, that's probably, what started this whole thing. If you get back to it, like purposely losing in the main reason, purposely losing in sports period is just terrible karma. So that's the thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. And man, I will say I think Sixers fans are just confused right now, man. I think that's what it is. I think, if I'm being honest about myself, for me to say that I have like some giant hill that I'm standing on with this situation, I don't. Like you said, we don't even have all of the answers. Like, did they offer? Like, of course, the report came out, said the Sixers didn't even offer James anything, but did they talk about it? Right? Like, did they have a discussion and maybe an offer wasn't gathered just because
that would be,
you know what I mean? Like, we just don't know. Right. But like, I think Sixers fans are just confused because you have James Harden in China, saying that he will never play for Daryl Morey again. Then you have Daryl Morey trolling the fans on Twitter, right? We're keeping Tobias. You want a crumble cookie, blah, blah, blah. He thinks he's funny. I think that's confusing for the fan base because we're not open to trading Tobias. Like, that's what you're declaring there, right? Like, how do you trade him after you make a social media post like that? Even if somebody offered something crazy for Tobias Harris right now, you would look like a bona fide idiot trading him, right? You'd look like an idiot that just goes and puts things on the social media that you don't even mean or that you don't even stand by. And then you have Joel Embiid trolling the fan base as well, which good luck trying to understand anything that Embiid is like insinuating or, symbolizing, because one, he is foreign and we don't understand his background and his sense of humor and the things that he comes from. And I also don't know if he understands that of us, right? Like, we don't know, but for the longest, Embiid has said the right things about the city of Philadelphia and has said that he wants to bring a championship to Philly. And then you kind of see him switch sides in that interview that wasn't supposed to be leaked out. Then you have PJ Tucker as well, right? Where it's confusing on that end, right? He says he doesn't flip like an acrobat over for his bros or whatever, basically insinuating he's going to stick by Harden's side, which I get. Daryl Morey gave him that ridiculous contract last offseason, right? So, like, you're going to stick by Harden's side, but not stick with Morey, who gave you that contract. Like, that's confusing to me as well. Does that mean PJ Tucker is demanding a trade off the team, right? You could say Harden paid him with that contract too, right? Because Harden takes the pay cut. So, like, it's just confusing at this point, man. And it's to the point where, like, the only guys on this team that I truly like like truly like as like a player on my favorite basketball team, probably like DeAnthony Melton and Tyrese Maxey and Paul Reed. Like that's where I'm at, right?
I
And I
love
don't know,
Melton.
it's just not a great place to be. My last
Yeah.
question regarding this situation, then we'll get into the top 10 shooting guards. What is the best case for Harden right now? Is it just being traded to the Clippers and whatever Philly gets, they get, and he can build his value that way and hope to be paid next year? Like, what is the best outcome that can come out of this for James Harden at this point? Because that's a lot that I don't understand as well. That's a lot of the part that I don't understand of the equation. As much as you are not happy with Daryl Morey right now, do not want to be part of things with him, wouldn't it be best to just have a great basketball season and build your value back up and hope that you get a multi-year deal next year? Or is it just, get me the hell out of here? You know what I mean? I know it sounds crazy because maybe it doesn't even happen next offseason anyways, based on what transpired this year, right? I just don't know what is the best case outcome for James Harden, not the Sixers, but for James Harden. What is motivating him right now?
Harden's a man of his word, man. He doesn't talk a whole lot, doesn't do a lot of public appearances, but like he wouldn't ever throw out that this dude's a liar, especially somebody that he cares about this much.
Yeah.
Like my thing is, did Morey lie once or twice, and how bad did he lie?
Right.
Like
How long did
he
it take for
sure
Harden to get
lied.
to this point?
Okay, so there's two things he could have lied about. One, the contract details. Like
Yeah.
where was the lie there, and how bad was that lie? The second one was, did he actually ever look for trades, and how realistic were those trades he was looking at?
Yeah.
Because if he does a deal with LA Clippers, like we talked about this before, a bunch of role players could have been fine, but might have pissed off Embiid a little bit. But like it wouldn't have came with all this drama that really stirred up Embiid as well, that you're a shady GM. And that's what will make a player mad, when you feel like you're sacrificing and you're trusting this guy that's in charge of your money, in charge of your future, and building what you want to do of winning a championship. And Daryl Morey, and the way he's mistreating Harden here. But like my thing with Harden is over the last 3-4 years, the biggest mistake he's made, which it worked out. He got to where he wanted to go in Philadelphia, but that part didn't work out afterwards.
Right.
Is not accepting the max contract in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yes, wasn't at a great time, and he was just getting settled in there. But like when you got a max contract in your 30s, like offered, you always take it and then just figure it out after that. You know, he would have got to play exactly. Probably would have had a say in picking his coach there. And
very true.
The team, say if KD and Kyrie both left and he got to play with Mikal Bridges in this team, he still would be, this team is around Harden, put Harden on that team right now.
Yeah.
He's still in a good situation.
Yeah.
But that'd be my only thing. And the best case scenario for him right now is to just get to any winning team. Like, I know he's probably going to be bummed if it's not the Clippers, but he's definitely. I listened to a whole podcast of his agent. He looks in great shape over in China. It looks like he's having the time of his life. But like, no, the dude's working hard. Like he knows he's got to put up this year because he's on a contract year, and he hears the hate, absolutely. But and he was in good shape for most of last year too. But like. I just hope he gets an opportunity to play a way that James wants to play. Not necessarily 100% Houston Harden, but that mix that was in Brooklyn. That's what needs to happen. Like, because I understand you saw it. Like, he played really, really perfectly for the role he had last year and the forced to be the subordinate to Embiid. Like that was, if you listen to any Doc Rivers interview, everything ran through Embiid. Like Maxey didn't like that. Nobody could like that. You can't like playing like that. But the team fit perfectly around Embiid, and it worked out for him. And then he faltered. But like, I like seeing all players reach their full potential, and Embiid just hasn't proven to be a guy that allows players to do that around him yet.
See, and that maybe that speaks to where I'm at. Maybe that's like the subconscious belief in me, right? Is that, guess what? This team just can't win with Embiid. Maybe there is a better world where you give Harden what he wants and just get him out of Philadelphia, right? Get him away from Daryl Morey. Maybe you even let Daryl Morey go, right? I don't know if you do it at this point in the offseason, right? Going into next season, you don't want to have to go and get a new president. And then obviously, if you're letting Morey go, I would imagine you would let Elton Brand go as well. So you would have to get a new GM. And then does Nick Nurse stay here if, Daryl Morey is out the door? How long is he here? So it's like maybe you don't want to go through this whole, retooling or rebranding process that it would be. But I believe there is a world where Tyrese Maxey is one of your focal points on the offensive end and he's your guard, right? And then maybe you trade Embiid for a platoon of draft picks, and maybe it's athletic wings that you finally get into Philadelphia to fit and put around Maxey, and you just go about it that way and see what you get, man. Maybe that's where I'm at subconsciously, where Embiid demanding a trade is just like the tipping point for me being over him being on my team, right? And maybe I finally get to see things for what they are. But yeah, man, I feel like you did bring me back from being just completely mad at Harden, but just allowing me to kind of voice my concerns with this entire franchise, which the whole thing is a shit show. It's not just Harden. It's been a shit show. It's been drama filled, right? There's a lot of people that are at fault here. And it seems that nobody is taking the proper amount of accountability within the organization. And that's going to lead us to where we are now, which is nowhere. So I'm a confused Sixers fan. I imagine there's a bunch of people that relate with me, but let's get into what we actually came here to do, my man. Let's get out of this negativity.
One last
go ahead.
Is two teams, call me crazy, that I think Harden would be an absolute flawless fit for, that could get him a lot of money, that could make these teams a lot better, and it would be very beneficial for Philadelphia. So I'm going to leave you guys on a high note.
Yeah.
Call me crazy. Ben Simmons ain't coming back. You don't need to worry about Ben Simmons, but there's plenty of role players you can get that fit the Sixers perfectly in Brooklyn by sending James back, and James and Mikal Bridges could have a hell of a season together. He's tight with Nick Claxton. I think that could be a win-win for both teams, but also the other team that comes to mind is the Toronto Raptors. Whether it's just OG Anunoby, whether it's just like Gary Trent Jr. and a pick or something like that, like getting wings like that. And there's many different scenarios, but those are two teams that better role players than you'd get back for. Then even Terrence Mann. Don't get hung up on Terrence Mann. Send him off to one of those teams. Somebody has to be smart enough to understand what Harden did last year. Like, people can't be stupid. They know it's just a Harden Morey thing. Like, Harden's had some bad. Yes, I'm not saying Harden's innocent, but he's had some bad luck here. Let's move on. Get off this topic. And talk about these guards.
I'm with you. I do love your mention of the Brooklyn Nets and then the Toronto Raptors. The interesting thing with the Toronto Raptors is I think they would have to throw in something with OG and Anunoby as far as like to make the salaries work just on the numbers that they're at this year.